Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another edition of Proofread. And today we're talking with Joe, the one, the only, the Kentucky atheist himself. I've got a Kentucky street sign in the background, so we all know where we're going. We're going to the good old KY state. The apparently, what did the thing say? It was the what
The
state is it?
bluegrass state.
The bluegrass state, which I believe is a form of music. I'm not sure if you're into bluegrass, so I apologize if your state, sort of doesn't appreciate your musical talents, Joe. But welcome, first and foremost, welcome, Joe. I do apologize. I should have had you on before this. For some reason, I thought I did. We were talking about it before we started, but you've been on the channel before. You've actually done a debate. But how are you, first and foremost? How are you feeling?
I'm doing great, Mark, and I really appreciate you having me on for a talk, and everybody coming to join us and watch and stuff. I'm completely stoked to be here. Happy to do it and love it. So,
well, I mean, I love having a casual chat with you. I've talked with you many times over the course of our little YouTube experience journey, stumble, fall, whatever you want to call it, our YouTube madness. But I really, part of Proofread is sort of pushing you on your ideas and sort of, getting deep dive into where you are and who you are and what you're doing on your channel. But first, I would like to sort of talk about so where you've come from and why you're associated with Kentucky. Obviously, you live there. But what made you associate with the state in particular? Why is your channel the Kentucky Atheist instead of, the bearded atheist or, Joe the Atheist?
I think that the state of Kentucky, at least in the realm of creators, is wholly unrepresented on YouTube. And when people think about Kentucky, they don't think about the atheist community at all. And I've wanted to not only show that I am an atheist in rural Kentucky, but that there are also a lot of others. And so I've tried to, people from Kentucky, I've tried to pay extra attention to and talk to them and with them and talk about the number of atheists that are here and take part in activities that are in Kentucky, because we have like Ken Ham's Ark here, AIG set up shop here. So there's a lot of things that go on here that need attention, I feel like, from people who experience it.
So Ken Ham's Ark encounter was in Kentucky, was it? I didn't know the state that it was in.
Yeah.
So your state would have helped sort of fund that.
Yes.
What could only be charitably called exhibition. So I apologize for sending you Ken Ham on behalf of my entire country for a start. No, we do not want him back. That is not going to happen. But one of my questions was whether you lived in sort of an urban or suburban or rural setting. So you're in the rural part of somewhere in Kentucky. What's it like? Obviously, you've been to the cities of Kentucky. What's it like, the difference between the city and the rural areas as far as religiosity and the people are concerned?
Well, I mean, Kentucky lies kind of on the edge of the Bible Belt anyway. So, I mean, it's a very religious state no matter where you go. The cities, there is a more of a liberal attitude and view towards things, as cities in America tend to be. Louisville is a huge metropolitan area, so there are those places. But I mean, Kentucky is an extremely red state, and it's full of Trump supporters. And I mean, I think there's in my county there's something like 260 churches. There's places I can go in what's called downtown Ashland, which Ashland is only a city of 17,000. It's not a real big city.
Right. Yeah, it's more town.
Yeah. There's corners that I can stand on and see 4 and 5 churches at a time. So I mean,
in that town, in that city.
Yeah. So
wow. Yeah,
it's an incredibly religious area, and the more rural that you go, the more out in the country to the hillbillies and stuff you go, the more religious and right wing and things it gets. Now,
Right.
that, of course, doesn't mean everybody, but it just, in general, it seems to be that way.
Yeah. And so, how is it going with down there with the sort of religious right? Does it feel overwhelming? Does it feel like they're sort of it's the last throes? Does it feel like they're going strong? How does it feel to you in Kentucky?
Well, it's incredibly frustrating at times, because I mean, as we know, doing what we do, a lot of people they take a stance or a belief or whatever, and they just refuse to listen to anything to the contrary. And so there's a lot of that, and sometimes it's frustrating. And there's a lot of people that don't like what I do, and it's
Yeah.
been challenging at times to speak out against things that I think are bad and harmful. And so it's a tough place, for that. But if you're just one of the good old boy Trump supporters, it's no problem for them. They're
Mhm.
and church is religion is more of a social thing. It seems like here, when you meet someone in Kentucky, a lot of times, I mean, especially if you're from here, the first question they ask is, "Where do you go to church?" I mean, it's or hey, are you a Christian? That's one of the first
Right.
things. And Kentucky has a history of racism and bigotry and things that are, um, it just there's a lot of negative things you can say about Kentucky. But on the other hand, there are there is a growing atheist community and a growing liberal community
Yeah.
that cares about people and things, and so it's changing, and it's a truly beautiful place. I mean, it's
Mhm.
Kentucky is a beautiful state. I mean, Australia is very beautiful too, but Kentucky is there's a lot of natural um, forests and caves and anything you can imagine. And it's a really nice place. It's just sometimes the people make it a little frustrating.
Yeah. And so do you ever feel isolated? Do you ever feel like you're sort of a atheist in a field of Christians basically? Has that ever come
Yeah.
along?
So that's really a big thing with me and many other atheists that I have met in Kentucky, is they feel isolated and like they're the only one, and in many cases that's true. My girlfriend and I are
Right.
atheists, but I don't know of any other atheists in my town or area. There's
Mhm.
it's so that, and that's kind of one of the reasons that when I started live streaming, I loved it so much, because I got to meet people and make a community of people that were at
Right,
least
right.
like-minded on some issues. Um, so it's YouTube's been very therapeutic on top of a lot of fun, and feel like I'm
Mm.
making a difference in certain areas.
Yeah, you absolutely are. Do you think there's people that are sort of culturally Christian, as sort of Richard Dawkins said recently, he was a cultural Christian kind of thing. Do you think there's a lot of people who are culturally Christian, but just atheist, like they don't really believe in God, but their neighbor does and their wife does, and everybody around them does. So hey, let's just get on board kind of thing. It just I wonder sometimes at the pragmatism of sort of espousing or sort of saying that you believe in God just to lubricate your way through life, essentially. I've sort of wondered if that's the case in some of these states.
I think I think these days, there is probably some of that. I think there's a lot
Mm,
of people who are just raised into the church and in religious society and go with it,
mm,
these days. Now, like when I was growing up through the 80s and 90s, though, indoctrination was top tier thing that everybody went through.
yeah,
The Even though it's illegal, the churches are very involved in the school and in the city and in every aspect of it. So there's there's whole generations that are still around that have been indoctrinated, and so I understand why they believe things so strongly. It's all they've ever been told. And you have a lot of places that are just now getting electricity and running water, and it's, you know, it's a poor state, and people look for hope in things that may not be the most rational, but they, you know, that they're looking for something to give them answers about things that we just don't know, and there's a lot of that.
Sorry, can I do apologize. I want to back up a second. You said people are just like, do you mean in the 80s and 90s just getting running water and stuff? Or do you mean like now? I do apologize.
Currently, there's places that still don't have internet in Kentucky at all.
But power and running water, I mean,
yeah.
Oh, that's crazy.
Yeah.
That's like, you know, when we sit there and go, well, you know, first world problems, that's literally a third world problem, like not having, like, you know, a first world problem is not having running water. That is literally a third world problem, or a developing country second world problem, maybe.
Well, I mean, there's a lot of them that it's just been a thing. Like, their whole families live out in these areas out in the country, and they don't want the city in there. They don't care. They've lived that way forever, and you know, they make it. I mean, it's less of a thing now, but I mean, I know for sure that in the next county over, there are parts of it that just got electricity. So
that's really weird. I'm sorry. That's really weird. I'd imagine that electricity should be okay. All right. That's you know, I'd understand if they were like Mennonite or Amish or something. You know, like,
there's a lot of those too.
Okay, there are a lot of those as well. Yeah. Which, you know, I think you know, the Amish and Mennonite sort of baffle me a little bit, because they sort of will budge on certain things. Like if they, you know, break a limb, they'll go to a doctor and stuff. So it sort of is a bit weird to me. Yeah, and do you get many people sort of evangelizing around, or, you know, Jehovah's Witnesses knocking on the door and think, yeah?
Well, now the Jehovah's Witnesses are growing here right now. They do go knock on doors in some areas, but I mean, there's a lot of areas where I live where it's just not smart or proper to just go up on someone's property, knocking on their door.
Right.
You won't be welcomed. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of places, if you walk on someone's property, they're coming out with a piece.
Okay. All right, yeah. That's really scary. That's very scary. I can imagine, you know, the Girl Scouts of America knocks on the door and gets blown away by a shotgun kind of thing. Like, that's actually frightening.
There's been a number of social workers that have been dusted. Just really? I'm trying to watch my terms, so.
Yeah, have been prematurely brought to a end through paranoid gun. And does sort of the castle doctrine apply in that case? Is it like, well, they were defending their property, or is that the people who sort of open fire without looking, do they actually have any ramifications for their actions?
So I don't want to, I'm not sure of the exact wording of it, but I mean, I was told before, you know, if somebody comes on your property and you do that, just make sure you drag them in the house, so you can say it was self-defense.
Okay. That's horrifying. Yeah, that's horrifying.
There's I mean, Kentucky is plumb full of guns. They're everywhere. Lots and lots of them.
Yeah, and that's one thing that's changed. Just I'm going to take a beat there, just while we have a slight pause. Just Left-Handed Jedi gifted 10 readerships for the peeps, so I'm just going to quickly go through that. DJ Tico, the Rodentine, Troy Martin, your mum gets a readership. There you go, your mum. That's amazing. Massive Atom gets a readership. Dolly88 gets a readership. Jesse Van Spike and Malay gets a readership. Ji Han Shin gets a readership. The Lomax Creation, I see you get to readership, and I think that's about all. Left-handed Jedi, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. But yeah, that's awesome. But that is the one thing that actually scares me about the US, the prevalence of guns and stuff. And I was never raised with guns. Were you raised in the church? And does gun culture and religious culture intersect over there? Is it an intersectional thing?
Well, I mean, okay. First of all, I was raised in the church as a fundamentalist, young Earth creationist,
And I want to talk about that in a second, but I just on guns briefly. Sorry, Joe. Go ahead, mate.
Yeah. So it's not so much that they're wrapped up inside of religion. It just happens to be that a lot of the religious people are extreme right wingers, and so there is this culture that it's kind of Christian nationalism, and they're all about the Second Amendment and things, and so there it's wrapped up in it, but not directly, I guess.
Right. So I mean, I was reading this thing about the Baptist sort of Baptist 2000 acknowledgement, and it seemed to suggest that the Word of God or the church doctrine should be above everything, including constitution and law. Do you get that feeling from the people in your state? Do they want religious doctrine to take the place of democracy?
Oh, in the in the cities, no, but in the rest of the state, very much so. Kentucky's a very, very red state, and Christian nationalism is huge here. QAnon is huge here.
Right.
There's so yeah, and no. I mean, the cities are the thing that if it wasn't for like Louisville and Lexington, two of the bigger cities in Kentucky, it would be like 80% right wing state. It's that's the only thing that balances us out at all, and it's still like in our legislature, it's a super majority of Republicans, but we have a Democratic governor because of those Democratic cities. So
okay, so the state legislature, you mean, like, so the whatever the state House of Representatives and Senators. Do you have that's what the houses are called in Kentucky?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so the state, yeah. And so how is the governor elected if not through the state sort of legislative apparatus? How are they elected then?
Well, it's done just a popular vote.
Oh, okay, I see. Right. Yeah, okay. Well, I mean, that sort of suggests if there's a super majority in the legislature, but a popular vote has the Democrats winning, that sort of says to me that the electoral boundaries are
gerrymandering,
to use a technical term. Well, I wouldn't go so far as to make that accusation, but certainly something comes up. But, well, so look, sometimes gerrymandering is sort of, when I say gerrymandering, sometimes shifting the electoral boundaries to certain, unusual states is warranted, but sometimes it's 100% not. I totally get that.
So there is a reason to allow them to adjust those lines, but whenever you start adjusting those lines in order to exclude people out of districts, and what ends up happening is you start whether intentional or not, which it is sometimes intentional, you start excluding minorities and the impoverished, and so they've kind of it hurts the state in the long run to do it that way, in a lot of different ways, and so I mean, it's getting better though. Kentucky is moving in the right direction. It's just we're 20 years behind the rest of the country in almost everything.
Yeah, I kind of know how that feels, definitely. I mean, I don't know a lot about Kentucky, and I do want to get to your thing. One thing I really wanted to ask, because all I know about Kentucky is fried chicken and whiskey, Kentucky whiskey,
bourbon,
like Jack.
bourbon here.
It's bourbon. Hang on a second. Isn't there like Kentucky whiskey, or am I thinking of Tennessee whiskey? Maybe.
Tennessee
Maybe I
whiskey.
don't. You know what?
Bourbon
That
is
just
made in Kentucky exclusively.
okay. That just eliminates half of the things I knew about Kentucky, quite frankly.
Let
Because
me
if
tell you,
I'm wrong that there's a Kentucky whiskey, then yeah,
there might be something called Kentucky whiskey because it has to do with the water and how it's done and stuff. So there may be
okay.
Kentucky whiskeys, but most people make bourbon in the state of Kentucky. There are more barrels of bourbon than there are people, and that is a fact.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so that's a real worry when you're too well, what you're famous for worldwide is fast food and liquor. You know, that's a slight worry. But really, I wanted to ask, like, if just say I came to Kentucky tomorrow and I'm like, hey Joe, what should I be doing in the state? Like, what would I go for in your state? Like, what would you say? Hey, you've got to see this kind of thing, or you've got to experience this. What would be the thing you would recommend that you know, Mark the Australian drops in on you, and what would you recommend?
So we are in Appalachia, which has some beautiful sights and things. The Kentucky Derby takes place here. The Corvette Museum is down in Bowling Green. Corvettes were made here for years and years.
So the Appalachian, that's mountains, isn't it?
Yes.
Okay. So hiking, you know, boating, like kayaking kind of thing. What are you suggesting here? Okay. I'm going to use you as the Kentucky Ministry of Tourism, or whatever you have over there, right? So like I don't drink and I don't like cars, so let's eliminate those. What else you got?
We've got 2 huge state parks that have caves, Carter Caves and Mammoth Caves. We've got a huge number of lakes and state forests, and there's all kinds of activities to do. Again, you know, going out, and I bring this up, you know, I'm not much into guns and stuff, but you know, we live in rural areas. You can go places and have fun using them responsibly, and making a day out of it. There is a lot of things to enjoy in the natural resources that Kentucky has. And again, the Kentucky Derby is a huge thing. People come from all over to see that. But fishing, hunting, going out on the rivers and lakes, that's a big thing. A lot of that stuff.
Right. And somebody, native atheist, said, don't forget Ken Ham's Ark Park runs for the hills. Yeah, no, I get you. Like, you know what? If I did visit Kentucky, it's probably something that I would do just for the hilarity of it. And you know, as much as I dislike giving money to Ken Ham, I think I'd have to, right? I think I'd have to, just, you know, make a video of it, kind of thing. But you know, parks and state national parks and reserves and things like that, I love that kind of stuff. And did you grow up in the country, or did you grow up more in the suburban area, or is sort of rural Kentucky something you've lived in all your life, or are you sort of?
I've lived in rural Kentucky all my life, other than when I went to college and you know, I spent a little bit of time up around Washington D.C., but you know, I've been in rural Kentucky 99% of my life.
Okay. And so when growing up, you said that you're a young Earth creationist. What sort of ministry were you in, and how do you look back on it? How do you feel when you look back on it? Like what evokes for you when you look back on the church that you were sort of grown in?
So we have, just like any other place, we have the Nazarene Church and the Baptist Church and the Christian Church and all the different kinds of churches, but it's mostly influenced by Southern Baptist ideals here,
right?
And Southern Baptist fundamentalism. So that's a lot of, for those that don't really understand the difference in that, it's a lot of telling you you're a worthless piece of crap, and that you don't deserve to have anything or anything like that. And if you're lucky and spend your life dedicated to the Lord, then you may be lucky enough to have some of God's grace. So there's a lot of that, and people are raised in that. Pentecostal churches are also huge here. So with the fundamentalism, and we have the Pentecostal churches that do snake handling and that kind of stuff too.
Talking in tongues and that kind of nonsense.
So I don't.
But how do you feel when looking back on it? Like how do you? Yeah, I really want to know sort of, your perspective. And sorry, go
at
ahead.
First I was angry, and I think people that go around and people that go around and say the angry atheists and this stuff, sometimes we're angry for a good reason for a little bit. But I was angry at first, and as I continued to focus on learning about how the world actually works and things, I realized that it's cultural, and there's not really I shouldn't really be angry about that. Now, the thing that angers me now is people that I know that know better, like AIG has PhD biologists working for them that deny evolution. So, I mean, those things anger me a bit, and whenever I see them focusing on promoting harmful ideals to children, which is a big thing here, I don't like that. But on my personal life, I feel like I was upset that a number of people lied to me, and that people, the preachers and stuff were actually on stage, pretending to know things they don't know, and some very important things. And whenever you realize that, it's kind of offensive, claiming to cure people's ailments and stuff, and by touching them on the head. And so those kind of things bother me a lot, which I think that for me, that's one of the big things that pushed me to activism, though, is because I feel like that there's people like me that had doubts about these things and stuff that just aren't given the facts and things and the resources to find out the truth. When I went to college, that's when I started learning about evolution and physics and the universe and all those things. And so in school, though, I was taught, my biology class taught intelligent design. So I feel like there's a space there where there needs to be people telling the truth about these things.
And they taught intelligent design in your school. So what did you go to college to actually study? Like, what was your focus of study?
Well, I started out as computer science, technology, just an associate's degree. And I liked it a lot and ended up going into the computer science engineering program, which I didn't finish.
That's okay.
But I was able to take a lot. I was a professional college student for a number of years at Ohio University in Athens, Ohio. So I took a number of classes on biology, physics. I took a couple physics classes, psychology, sociology. I wanted to learn about a lot of those things. And it's not that really college taught me all those things, but it gave me the curiosity to go down those rabbit holes and go find out for myself. Because whenever I first found out, like, and I've talked about this a number of times, but when I first found out that like humans and chimps share such close DNA, and that was a problem for what I had been taught growing up. So I went to find things to confirm my faith, right? I was looking for, well, maybe it works like this, and yeah, they just took it too seriously. You know how them pastors are and whatever. And I went looking for things to confirm my faith. But the more that I researched, if I was going to be honest with myself, I had to admit that the what we observe of how the world works is extremely contradictory to Christianity. So
would you say that your deconstruction was sort of a slow unraveling, or was there something in particular that sort of you went, no, I can't, this absolutely destroys what I thought before?
Well, the evolution was the thing that the big thing that set me on a path to discover more. Now, I didn't learn right away, everything that made me drop my belief, but it was over a course of a couple years, and for a period of time, I was like, well, the Bible's written by people. It may get things wrong, but I still believe that there probably is a God and stuff. And I was trying to. It was a lot of just trying to take that indoctrination and not wanting to accept that I had been wrong about the world around me for so long. And but eventually, I found out different. And then I also, one of the other things, a big thing, I was in jail, and I read a book called A Spiritual Solution to Every Problem. And it talked about how all these other cultures believed in these different creation stories, what the Vikings believed, and both ancient and current cultures, what they believed as far as creation. And when I looked at that the thing that we always say is what popped into my head. It was like, well, these can't both be right. What if they're all wrong? What if this is, people used to believe in Zeus and all these ancient Greek gods and stuff. And what if this is just the same thing? And so this is just religion 2.0, right? Or 3.0. And so I kind of got that view on it eventually. And of course, that just led me down more and more. And when I discovered debates from Hitchens and Dawkins and Lawrence Krauss talking, and then people on YouTube and debates and stuff, where people were giving facts and sources and things you could check, I went and checked those things. And I found out that the atheists were giving honest sources where you could go look it up. And every time I went and checked the claim of creationists, it never said what they claimed it said. And, those things just pushed me further and further till eventually I made my YouTube channel like 2 years before I put any content out. The Kentucky Atheist had been a YouTube channel for a couple years. And it wasn't until I had quit working my previous job and had a little bit of time to sit down and started watching stuff again. And I was like, you know what? I want to make some kind of funny videos about the grifting and stuff that televangelists do and all that. Yeah. So it's been over a number of years, but I would say it was about, I don't know, 11, 12 years ago that I admitted openly and said the words, I'm an atheist, You
said you went to jail. What was that for? Like, what happened there?
So,
look, we don't have to talk about it. It's just
I don't mind. I've told this whole story, so it's fine. So one of the characteristics of Eastern Kentucky, this tri-state area, is through the 90s and most of the 2000s, it's been one of the most drug-infested areas of this country, and it's got a strong correlation with poverty.
Of course. So
I grew up, and I was a drug addict for most of my life, and I did a lot of horrible stuff in the pursuit of that. So the first time that I went to jail and read the book and stuff, I was locked up for theft by unlawful taking and forgery. But over the course of my addiction, I ended up with charges for possession of a handgun by a felon, receiving stolen property. I got a DUI at one point. All those things that go with that kind of lifestyle. And I never got charged with any drug charges directly, though, which is a good thing, because those have a different effect. But I became a convicted felon a couple weeks after I graduated high school, and so being impoverished and then put in that hopeless situation, my coping skills just weren't there. And so rather than deal with my problems and things, I turned to drugs more, and it drove me further into that. And I was in a real dark place for a long time. I overdosed a number of times, and people saved my life. And I tried different forms of getting sober that just didn't work, because I would get sober for a period of time, and when something would happen, my way to deal with it was not deal with it at all. If I don't have to feel it, then I'll make myself not feel anything. And
Yeah,
so
and that's the worst part about addiction, and that sort of coping with the substance. It doesn't actually work.
yeah,
And a psychologist sort of once put it really well. He said it's so close to working that it fools you into thinking it'll
sure.
work just
Yeah.
this time, kind of thing, and it never does and never comes through. So
When you're strung out on a drug like heroin, you you have no control over your life, and it tells you what to do. Your whole life revolves around what you're going to do to get that drug. And I mean, there's other drugs, and alcohol does this too. I'm not trying to minimize any of that, but
no, I know.
It's a I did a lot of awful things and stuff, and so I've had to make amends the best I can for those things, and try to move forward. And I eventually got clean about 10 years ago, and it just changed everything. And I started to care about different things, and I realized the importance of honesty and being a decent person, and caring for others, because I had spent so much time hurting others that to this day I live with a lot of guilt and things over all that. But I still try my best to make a positive impact with what I have left. I had hepatitis at one time, which I don't have anymore. I received treatment for that and no longer have it. As an effect, though, the toll that it took on my body, a couple years ago, I ended up having to have heart surgery. I tick now. I have a artificial valve in my heart. Had 2 holes in my heart. There were consequences to the way I lived, and I take full responsibility for that. And I learned a lot about accountability. And sometimes now that makes me be a little too hard on myself, but I'm that way though, because I know that if I don't hold myself accountable, that's what allows me to slip into those bad ideas and stuff. So I always try to, like I said, sometimes a little too much, but it's a hard life to live. And it just got to a point to where I woke up every day and despised the life I was living. And the whole every aspect and everything I did was because of my addiction, because of seeking some way to get that next high, and to continue that, and then not be sick. For the longest time it was just, let's not be sick. And I sold drugs to a lot of people that are no longer with us, and I have a lot of guilt and stuff, because I didn't directly cause any of that I'm aware of, but just there's people that I enabled to go down that road that are no longer with us because of it. And so that stays with me, and I think about it every day.
Well, I think maybe you should be kinder to yourself. I was into a lot of stuff when I was younger as well. I sort of got thrown out of home at 18, and was sort of in the scene. And I definitely didn't get involved in anything like heroin, but ecstasy and
Sure.
meth and all of that kind of stuff. Luckily, I just sort of it didn't take. I guess I didn't. But all I'm trying to say is that the difference between me and you being in jail and me not is probably just sheer luck, to be honest with you.
Probably, yeah.
Like there was plenty of things that I did that probably would warrant getting arrested and prison time for. There's no way. So yeah, I don't.
A lot of
I
mine
don't think.
A lot of mine
Well,
was self-medicating, things that
yeah.
I didn't realize that I had depression and these other things that I was trying to fix myself. And once I got to the point that I could no longer, I had to accept that I had no control over my life. There's an AA thing that they say, which I don't like AA, but they do have some good points in it. And you're powerless. You're powerless over your own life. And once I got to that point in things, and I wanted to change it, it was I went and seen doctors who said, hey, maybe I got a dual diagnosis of being a drug addict and also having some emotional issues and stuff, which I imagine were worsened by the years of drug use. But a lot of people, that's the thing, because in America and other places too, I'm sure it's this way in Australia, mental health has such a stigma on it that people don't want, especially men, don't want to go talk to professionals and things.
Right.
And I had to eventually, and it's one of the I'm so thankful, because if I don't think, when I think about my addiction, if I would have spent another year, month, or even week doing what I was doing, I wouldn't be here. And I wouldn't be watching my kids grow up and seeing the great things they're doing and all that stuff. And sorry, this is such a downer.
No, it's just it resonates a lot with me, because I used to run around with my cousin, getting up to all kinds of mischief, and like we were sort of almost exactly the same age. We were sort of 1 year apart, kind of thing. So my cousin was more of a brother to me than my brother probably was. I'd sort of hung around with him, and sort of a while back, I heard that he died of a methadone overdose, kind of thing. So he didn't make it, and I did, and we were up to the same kind of stuff. So I have no. I don't see it as, oh well, you're weak or something. It's just I think it's sheer luck that it didn't go down that path, or maybe one of those decisions that somebody makes either one way or the other. But I think that the thing that I hate about AA and NA, like Narcotics Anonymous and Alcoholics Anonymous, is that they sort of say, well, you've got to put your faith in a higher power, kind of thing, and that's the solution. And I think that what I understood about substance addiction and how it works, you can't just fix the addiction. There's underlying, like, it isn't the addiction that's the problem. The problem's the problem. The addiction is the coping method that you're using to cope with the problem. So I think that I think that my biggest issue with NA and AA is sort of just the way they say, well, put your faith in a higher power and it's all fixed. The problem's still going to be there. You've got to address the emotional problems, the damage, the trauma that has actually led you to coping with that trauma using some kind of substance, and that's what drives me up the wall about them.
So,
however,
they
can be really good. They can be really good for just because group therapy is good. It just is,
After the or not, I don't want to say after, but on the downside of some of the opiate crisis with Oxycontin and things like that in the United States, something wonderful happened because of it. Even though it was such an awful thing, the American Society for the the American Society for Addiction Medicine.
Yeah.
They introduced evidence-based care and
Yes.
medication-assisted treatment and things like that.
Mhm.
And
Yep.
different things work for different people, and whatever works is good for you. But the numbers and things like NA and AA and these faith-based programs were putting up, success rates were in the single digits. And
Yeah.
evidence-based care came in and changed that drastically. And it's not perfect. It has problems. There's pros and cons to any of this stuff. But, you know, the difference between being strung out on drugs and not able to care for your family, hold a job, be any kind of functional member of society, versus I go and take a Suboxone every day and I'm able to hold down a job, pay my bills, and take care of my kids. So there's this
Yeah.
stigma on that as well, where you're like swapping
Yes.
one medicine for the other. I'll take that any day. Give me that swap any
Yeah.
day. But that also came with, again, a lot of counseling and groups and mental health care and learning a lot about myself, you know, because all those years I suppressed those emotions. You know, one of the
Yeah.
good things about getting clean is you get your emotions back. But one of the bad things about getting clean is you get your emotions back. So it's a tough thing, and you really need professionals there to help you work your way through
Absolutely.
it. So
And I really admire you, Joe, because that's a hard place to claw your way out of. It takes
I'm
work
still
and
doing it, brother.
yeah, I know, I hear you, and it's sort of I really admire that you've managed to, you know, come out of that and start your own channel and you know, have a family and sort of, you know, commit to these things and make a better life for yourself is just, it really is admirable. It, you know, I know that it's a ton of work. I'm not trying to
Oh, sure.
minimize it at all.
Yeah.
I think that a lot of the time it is minimized. People will just say, "Oh, well, they should just turn their life around," you know, and it's sort of like, well, yeah, you have no idea the depth of struggle it takes to do this. You know, it's
Well, a lot of the consequences of Kentucky being such a far right, extremely red state is a
mm,
lot of the people here. You know, they say it's my fault, which it is, and I, you know, at least the parts of it that I had any control of are definitely my fault. Um,
yeah.
so there's a lot of society doesn't think I deserve another chance at anything. So I've had to figure it out myself, which
Um, so I mean, I think so. A lot of it isn't like I'm trying to think more in the terms of determinism. I'm watching a lot of Alex O'Connor lately, and I think that sort of, you know, when we grow up in these situations, when we grow up in these areas, when we grow up and our minds are shaped by our environment, there is a question of how much we are to blame for how somebody turns out, essentially. You know,
yeah,
and even if I don't 100% believe in determinism, you know, simply the amount of people that who abuse people that were abused when they were children. You know, the
yeah,
amount of people that have, you know, sort of sex crimes that had that done to them as there has got to be some sort of correlation between how you grow up and how you turn out. So I don't think we're to blame as much as we blame ourselves. I don't think we're sort of responsible for how we turn out as much as,
right. Yeah, I mean, you
you
are
know,
a
as
product
we
of the
blame ourselves.
environment you're in, right? I mean,
Yeah.
so there's these cultural and environmental pressures, as always, that dictate a lot of that, and that's part of the like Kentucky. When you look at, you know, it's one of the poorest states, and it also has one of the highest numbers of addiction, and it's these things are seem to go hand. Well, we know they do now, and these things go hand in hand, and when you're in a hopeless situation,
Mm.
if your coping skills because of whatever aren't right, then sometimes you make bad choices. And
Oh yeah.
unfortunately, society everywhere, but a lot here, isn't designed to help those people that are struggling. It's designed to make a bigger gap between those that have it and those that don't. And it's a flaw of, I mean, this goes down a huge thing to do with capitalism and American exceptionalism and
Yeah,
all
yeah.
kinds of stuff. So, but I mean, it's something that when you step back and look at it, yeah, I mean, you're a product of your environment always. That's going to be true.
Mm. Oh, absolutely, absolutely. But um, so what, were you a Christian when all this was happening? And how long ago? You said sort of, I think it was 8 years ago you became an atheist. Is that right? So,
I've been an atheist for about 12 years.
okay,
I was maybe, I don't want to say agnostic, but I was uh,
sort of doubting or
God curious for a number of years.
okay,
You know,
yeah,
um, just I just felt like, well, I don't know, and threw my hands up and like that's probably
yeah,
true, and lived my life as that cultural Christian. Um,
mhm,
but at a certain point, as I learned more and more, and especially when I started looking at the cosmos. Um, that was one of the big things too, because it's just like whenever you look at and you learn about the natural processes that lead to these things, it's so much more awe-inspiring than saying, "Hey, this book says God did it." Like
yeah,
there's
yeah.
it's and maybe that's selfish in a way, but I couldn't. There was no way for me to reconcile science and the natural world with the claims of religion. And I mean, as we all know, but there was just no way to do it. And eventually, I looked into it more and more in history and stuff, and it just fell apart. It just fell
Mhm,
apart, and I had to come out and say, "Hey, I just don't believe that shit." Like, you know.
yeah. How did, but was this happening like while you're in the church, and how did they view, like, what was their stance on somebody struggling with addiction and sort of going through all of this? Um, how did they react to it?
Churches are, I mean, churches that the people that I encountered in religion, from my experience, seems like they had their blinders on to these things. They made sure to not see it. Um,
Mhm.
the people that had a few dollars or whatever, were middle class, considered themselves rich, and they rubbed elbows with those people. And church was just a social thing to be seen, really. Sure, they believed all the stuff. They've been indoctrinated their whole life, but as
Mhm.
adults, it became just a who's who thing. And so they had blinders to a lot of these things. But also, I mean, those people, just like me, were told they were worthless pieces of crap too, and that they
Right.
didn't deserve anything good to happen to them. So it was kind of, when you believe that way, I mean, and then your life goes that way, you're like, well, that's how it goes. That's what's expected.
Do you think
You're
that exacerbated, like if I'm like, I know people have a tendency to shame others in that situation, which is, the worst outcome you can have, because, if you're told, hey, there's no hope for you and you're a piece of crap, how do you break out of that sort of that cycle?
well.
I
Sometimes you don't completely. I mean,
Yeah.
sometimes you have doubt about yourself carrying on into your adult life and things, because and maybe being indoctrinated in those things was partially what made me have so many problems coping with depression and things like that,
Right,
because
right.
I thought I
Yeah.
deserved it. Like, I don't. This is I I bought and paid for this ticket. This is what I got for it, you know, and
Mhm.
these are the consequences, and it's my fault. And I guess, you know, to this day, I kind of say that. So I think it does have a long lasting effect, whether you
Right.
embrace the rest of it or not. I mean, there is a
Mm.
consequence to taking a young child and telling them at 5 years old when they ask, how did he get all the animals on the boat? If you want to ask questions, you're going to hell. I mean, there is
Right.
consequences to doing that to children. And it's a big part of why I get so upset about Christian homeschooling and things now. I mean,
Yeah.
it's awful.
I presume a lot of that's going on in Kentucky, sort of Christian homeschooling
AIG
and
is big into it right now.
right,
Um,
right.
and it's almost completely unregulated.
Yeah. It's tragic and it's terrible and it shouldn't be allowed to happen. I think in order to homeschool, you'd have to at least, sort of display that you're competent at the curriculum. I don't know why, we wouldn't allow people with just average people on the street to come in and teach in a school. I don't know why we'd allow it for homeschooling. It's not to say that every homeschool is bad. People are very,
No,
very knowledgeable. They can do it, but I mm, mm,
some of it is. I mean, to me, and maybe sure I'm biased. We all
yeah,
are in some things, but
hmm
I mean, I think it's borderline abuse, if not outright abusive in some cases, to lie to kids about things that we know are the case. Right? Like a flood. The flood is one of
yeah,
those things that not only do we not have any evidence that anything like that ever occurred, we have literal mountains of evidence that it
yeah,
didn't, and we know that it didn't. And I say with confidence that I can, given the time and the resources, I can demonstrate to you that it didn't. Um,
sure,
so I think then whenever you allow people to tell kids lies about the world, because you believe something, you're stifling their ability to be productive members of society. And these may be people that have the ability to get older and do really great things, and they may still do really great
yeah,
things. A lot of
sure,
Christians do, but
yeah.
I mean, I feel like that you have to. There's no way to look at that and not know that it's having a negative effect on society and children especially.
Well, I think that um, when you're talking about sort of rejecting the world that you see around you for the book is correct over reality. I think that becomes a problem, like a massive problem.
Yeah.
Sort of being told, well, if reality disagrees with your preconceived notions of this God and this one particular book, then ignore reality. It's not true. It really rubs me the wrong way, because it's sort of, on one hand, you're sort of saying, oh, well, you're going to man's, evidence instead of God's evidence. And it's sort of like, well, but this is what we see in the world around us.
We're going to
You're
actual
basically
evidence.
right, right. Well, I mean, that's sort of what they say.
Right.
They sort of say, hey, well, if the book says a thing, then it says a thing, and then that's what you've got to believe. And I don't think it's a coincidence that so many people in um, religions are now following flat Earth. There's a massive thing in
Oh yeah.
fundamentalist Christianity of flat Earth sort of taking over, because all they need to be convinced of is that the Bible says it's flat. Like,
Well,
that's it.
I mean, it's actually worse than that, because now we have QAnon, which is
Mm,
mostly extremely religious people, and I mean, we've seen the product of that. We have people in Congress talking about Jewish space lasers and things, and
right.
I mean, it's this stuff has grown. I mean, the like I don't know, just all the different conspiracies, especially about the Catholic Church, and then there's a lot of there's a lot of racism and things baked into some of that stuff, and it's I think historically, if man is to make it for another couple thousand years, I think society is going to look back on this and not very kindly at that. I think they're going to say this is responsible for the breakdown of society, and this fundamentalism that leads to fanaticism, that leads to all these other horrible consequences, was really damaging and stifled progress so much.
Right. Well, I think we already have an example of where religious influence started. The Dark Ages, essentially, where technological progress sort of came to a halt until the Enlightenment, where these superstition and things were rejected. So I think we already have an example to sort of say, hey, and I think I will agree, but I don't think religion's really going anywhere in a hurry. I think that religion has kind of been, dragged kicking and screaming into the 21st century. I think it'll be dragged kicking and screaming into the 22nd. I don't know if humans will ever drop, if not like Christianity, because basically New Age spirituality is taking a large segment of those people deconverting. So it's not like they're leaving everything; they're just transferring onto a new thing.
Right. I think it'll just change forms.
Right.
That kind of idealism isn't going to go away, because people, humans, one of the things that is a product of evolution also is that we look for when we don't have the answer to something, we look to whatever we can imagine and works for us at the time, logically or illogically. They'll stick with. Whenever people had nothing to do but sit and look at the stars at night, they made up stories about the constellations, how they got there, and why things were the way they were. And I think that it's a positive thing, part of our intelligence, because it allows us to expand and want to discover, and that curiosity that drives technology and discovery and science. But at the same time, if that isn't if you don't teach people to direct that into something that is beneficial rather than a detriment, then you have a lot of this happen. And there's always going to be people that go with their imagination rather than facts. I mean, it's just I think it's a human condition, really.
Well, what does spirituality mean to you? Like, what does that word mean to you?
Nothing really. I mean, I think I could use it and say someone's attitude towards a certain thing or personality about certain issues or whatever. But I don't think that how you would define spirituality. I don't think that's. I think that it's in the realm of the supernatural, and it's not something that's supported by anything.
Well, I sometimes think it's how people use it, because a lot of the time when people are using it, they kind of mean sort of emotionality, like an emotional connection to things, and I don't have a problem with it used in that sense.
Me neither.
I think, yeah, I'm right on board with the whole supernatural thing. So I think that more and more I'm sort of looking at when people say spirituality, they're really meaning sort of emotional expression kind of thing. That's really what they're meaning. But for some people it is, as you say, it's a this dimension that exists somehow that we can't seem to prove or whatever. I saw a clip of you recently with a very famous Christian. Well, I mean, I say Christian. It's a very famous idiot called Darth Dawkins. Do you want to talk a bit? I can play a clip if you want.
Go for it.
Okay. I do have a clip. And this part of it really sort of fascinated me, because I really I
liked not the plaid socks, is it?
Sorry?
It's not the plaid socks, is it?
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
you survey all of the reference works, dictionaries, encyclopedias, including philosophical works, when we look at them in the aggregate, we have a unified standard definition of atheism in all those works, that atheism is the denial of God. But if you want to use atheism in a non-standard way,
okay, so we don't actually. The first thing you'll read in Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy is that atheism is polysemous. That means it has multiple different definitions. Even within philosophy, it has multiple different definitions. So it's actually 100% wrong to start off with. This is something I had to pull up with, I think it was Nephilim Free. I think I was debating him for some mad reason. And, I had to pull up Stanford where it says it has multiple different meanings. So he's absolutely wrong. It doesn't have a standard definition. It's polysemous. It has multiple definitions.
Way that it's simply a mental state absent a positive belief. I can still work with that.
The denial of God suggests that God exists.
No, it doesn't.
Oh, okay. That's how I take that, though. I mean,
that's incorrect. That's incorrect. Okay?
If I'm denying something, I'm denying that which is you're saying
so
the existence of God.
Okay, so let's put to rest this false notion that is widespread, that you can suspend judgment about God. It's one thing to make a self-identifying claim. It's another thing to ground the self-identifying claim. So you're claiming to suspend judgment about God, right?
I love how he says self-identifying claim. Like if you say, I am this, and it's like, well, you've made a claim, you've got to prove it.
Yeah.
You don't have to do that with beliefs. Like that's just what it is. Like it's so weird for someone to say, well, you've made a claim about what you believe.
Well, the problem with that is that it's quite obvious that if you claim a God exists, you're making a positive claim for a God. You can't then say the rejection of that is also a positive claim, because it's not. It's just that nothing works that way. That doesn't even work logically.
We'll see where he's going with this, and sort of I want to get your thoughts on it.
Sure.
Okay. Your claim is completely contradicted, since you don't like contradictions and you oppose contradictions. Then you'll like this. Your claim to suspend judgment about God is contradicted by what you do. What you do is the following. When you invoke propositions or statements, you do so by choice without referencing the necessity of God. You have made a judgment.
Oh, shit. I rewound it. I didn't mean to.
Okay. So that's basically where I wanted to go. And how do you feel about your interaction with Darth? And that's just one example. And I'll sort of talk about why that's horrendously wrong.
How do I feel about the interaction or that particular subject?
Either, both. I would love to know.
I feel like presuppositional apologetics is one of the most dishonest arguments somebody can make. Because if you're addressing my rejection of the claim of God, we can't then have a conversation where I agree that a God exists. Like there's nothing there that way. So you have to be very careful, especially with characters like this. You have to be careful because there's a lot in the semantics that's buried in there. And I think that this burden shifting thing that he's trying to do there in order to lay it out, it doesn't work unless I follow the script. And that's the problem he was having. And that's why he got frustrated and just tried to steamroll me for an hour. He does that anyway. But not only do I not see any evidence of this God or a creator or any of that, I don't see any reason at all to assert such a thing. And so where his presupposition is a God exists, mine is that not presupposition, but my question for that is, you keep every question that was asked in that whole thing by both of them was about, a necessary God. You've yet to show me any reason to think that a God is necessary. not just no evidence. You've not given a single reason why a God is necessary or why I should believe that. And if we take that term, the argument he was making, and I insert the Tooth Fairy or Bigfoot or any other supernatural being in there, it comes out the same way, and that shows how absurd it is.
Yes. Yeah, so that's what I liked about your response when I watched that back. You sort of said, well, if you put fairies in there, it comes out exactly the same. And that's true. He's not sort of saying, hey, if you reject God, then you're rejecting something, and that something must exist to reject it. I think he's used that in the past, and he probably still does, because he hasn't changed an iota since I last engaged with him. So he probably still does. He wasn't making that one at the moment. Basically, what he's saying is that if you act in a way that denies the existence of God, so basically all actions, all propositions, all statements, all questions, everything references something. You're either doing it in a way that is a direct result of God, or you're doing it in a way that's not a direct result of God. And that's basically how he's sort of framing it. Right. And so he's sort of saying, well, if you're doing it in a way that's not referencing God, then you're then denying God, and therefore you have a burden of proof. And that's not true, because as you said, you're also denying the existence of Bigfoot. You're also, making propositions without reference to fairies. You're also making propositions without reference to, magic. You're also making propositions without reference to trolls or anything, literally anything else.
Well, he
and
wouldn't. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
Well, you're not expected to show that they're not real. That's the thing.
Right. He didn't let me speak much during that, which is his thing, And but the thing that I wanted to ask him is, well, I mean, all these other religions assert that their God is necessary also, and the one true thing. So you reject those, and they all say they're necessary. Yet the big old presupposition shoved in there only makes sense if you believe. For anybody that doesn't hold that position, it's, to me, that whole conversation was just a disjointed mess, because they never said anything of substance at all. It was just necessary God. I think it's necessary, and it's like you haven't supported any of that with anything.
No, I get you.
Yeah,
but it's very hard to articulate why. So for somebody that's not versed in any philosophy and they're just cruising around a room, especially if they're looking for a reason why God is true, if they're like you said, you're kind of looking for those apologetics which help you still believe. It kind of, on a surface level, it kind of makes sense. It's that you can say, hey, they haven't shown a God doesn't exist, therefore I should believe it. But when you actually drill down, it's so bad, like apologetics, because I would probably say to Darth at that point, look, I'll show you the evidence of a not God world when you show me the evidence of a not fairy world, because you're propositions without reference to fairies.
It's I actually, this sparked me to, I'm making a few of my videos and things that I talk about on the channel are going to be addressing how to deal with some of these presuppositional things. Yesterday we talked about using the problem of deception as a precept buster, and so I'm trying to, I don't want to say I'm trying to teach people, because I'm not really in a position to do that, but I'm sharing my thoughts on it. And one of my favorite quotes is, if I've seen further than others, it's because I stood atop the shoulders of giants, by Isaac Newton. And so if I can contribute something that somebody else can take and say, they can build on it and make it better, because nobody's really talking about the problem of deception. And I think where the argument is, the state of apologetics today, it's a really good tool, because apologetics has been beat to death so many times that they've resorted to this presuppositional argument, because they have to insert God from the very beginning, or they have nothing.
Well, I don't they're sort of saying I'm right because I'm right. That's essentially what it boils down
Oh
to.
yeah, the
But
smugness too. Oh,
one thing I do notice is that when you engage with somebody like this, or even one thing I've noticed from doing debates, I don't know if you've noticed this, but like a million people will jump out of the woodwork, tell you what you should have said and how you address these kind of things.
yeah.
And I think it's good. Don't get me wrong. I've got no problem with it. I like that people say that. But at the same time, I think it's important to be genuine to what you think, or what you believe kind of thing. Like you let people influence you with what you genuinely honestly believe, or what you genuinely honestly think is a good response.
Yeah.
So did you get a lot of that? People saying, hey, you should have said this in that conversation. You should have said that.
There was, I think the people that, because of the community that I run in, I think that there was a lot of people who said those things, but they were genuinely just giving it as tips on how to address certain questions. But yeah, there is a lot of that. And one of the things that I push for a lot is I tell people that I don't want to hear about your arguments and stuff. I want to talk about what and why you actually believe, and I want to know why you believe it. I don't want to hear this that you've made an argument that you think is so complex somebody can't answer. I want to know why you believe it's true. And we don't have to argue about that. I want to hear it because I want other people to hear it that have felt that way and dealt with those things, and then to talk about why we differ in those things. I'm not interested in your philosophical argument and that stuff. I mean, like, I don't care to address those things. It's part of it, but like, I'm more interested in the personal aspect of it, because I think that's where the most important work can be done by me anyway.
Well, there was an interesting sort of exchange in that conversation where you basically said, I don't care for philosophy. And their thing was like, everybody's doing philosophy. And it's kind of, they're not wrong, but the way they're leveraging it is, the way
what they're doing
saying,
isn't philosophy. It uses philosophy, but it's not. They're using parts of philosophy, but it's like a bastardized version. They've taken it and tried to make it do something it's not designed to do.
Well, they're conflating. Okay,
Yes.
so the conflation that they're making is
said.
sort of saying, well, it's sort of saying that so you've got your formal philosophy, which is the stuff that we get into when we say, hey, this is a fallacy and this is logic and this is rationality, and the arguments back and forward. That's sort of the more formalized. But in a way, they're conflating the idea of that formal philosophy with the idea that everything boils down to philosophy. Like, so every time we say, like you're saying, how do you know this? Well, I know it because I saw it. That boiled down is epistemology. That is kind of a philosophy, right? It's kind of how we, so they're conflating these two ideas of philosophy. Like, so when we say, hey, I went to university to study philosophy, you're not just going there to make a sandwich, but you might say, hey, when you get down to it, how you make a sandwich is part of philosophy. And it's well, you're not wrong, but at the same time, you're conflating the two meanings of the words here.
I think what I mean by the way I address it is that I agree that when you talk about what we think, what we believe, how we feel, and all those things, there is a philosophical aspect to it. But then whenever you start talking about using the rules of philosophy and the when you're talking about a not educational, but a not intelligent, when you're having a intellectual conversation about philosophy itself, though, I think that's where it goes downhill. Sure, we all use philosophy, and philosophy is involved, and epistemology is a big part of that. But whenever you then try to take, like, you make a syllogism and you build it off a presupposition that you could insert any other character in, and then you're trying to prove God is true with philosophy, which is not what it's for at all. Not even the God part. Philosophy alone isn't designed to prove things true. That it tells you what's coherent and what's not fallacious or illogical. it allows you to rule out the arguments that are not coherent or not based on logic. But it doesn't. You use philosophy to decide what's true, but the rules of philosophy does not tell you what's true itself.
Right. Yeah. So I think we're on the same page, that it'll just tell you what's possible as opposed to impossible, for instance. And then, you would go about. So I think that sort of people like him would say, well, if I can prove it's not impossible, it must be true. And that's just such bad reasoning, I think that, just about anything is possible in this universe. Like, there are things that are impossible, paradoxes and contradictions.
We don't know what we don't know.
Well, that's absolutely true as well. That's why we rarely rule things out as impossible. Something like a married bachelor is impossible, or, a square circle is impossible. We know these things, or sort of, something being in two places at once. Although with quantum physics, we're not 100% sure of that either. But at the end of the day, it's not going to tell you whether that thing actually exists,
Right. I agree. That's I'm not always the best at articulating these things. I'm much better at writing than I am talking, actually. But
oh, really?
I'm not great at articulating this stuff sometimes, and I admit that. But at the same time, I feel like that there's a lot of people in that same position. And whenever I go and attack some of these heavier issues, or deal with someone that's well known like Darth Dawkins, and for some reason there's a huge following that thinks that he is just out there kicking butt and stuff, like
I don't.
Like I want to show people that just go into it and be honest, and you'll be okay. Like just be honest. Tell him why you don't think that's true, and let him call you stupid and all that stuff. That doesn't make him look better. Maybe to his echo chamber it does, but like just be honest and talk to people about it. And if you don't know or don't understand what they're talking about, tell them so. Say so. I don't know. Like, it's okay. And I want to show people that I'm not the smartest guy in the world. I don't pretend to be, but I'm not scared to have an honest conversation with somebody about complex topics. I mean, and I'm not afraid to say I don't know sometimes.
Well, I mean, I don't think that being smart is really, just because you're smart doesn't mean you're right. Newton was a genius. He invented calculus. There's no question, but he still did alchemy and thought he could turn lead into gold. He was still a dumbass when it came to certain things, I don't think that being smart makes you automatically right, or even more likely to be right, to be honest with you. I think that a lot of people who can't articulate exactly what they think, they still do have a sort of deep understanding of what's rational or not.
I agree completely with you. My thing is I want others to see just a regular guy from Kentucky doing this and understand that they can speak up and use their voice and do it too. Like you can be honest, and if this is all about belief, when we're talking about religion, it's all about what you believe is true. Now, sure, there are claims that you can show are not true, and there's science, and it gets deeper depending on which direction you go. But at the end of the day, don't be scared to speak up and say, I don't think that's true, or I don't agree with you, or I don't know, or whatever. I want others I think, for example, Matt Dillahunty is awesome at debates and a very good speaker, and a very, very intelligent man, and has a lot of great takes on a lot of subjects. But you don't have to be Matt Dillahunty to come and confront people that are going around spreading bad ideas. Anybody can do it.
Yeah,
you
absolutely.
Just gotta want to.
And I mean, you kicked Kyle's ass all over the stage when I hosted that debate. I mean, really, that was if you haven't seen it, it's on Kentucky Atheist channel. I might just link you again. He debated Kyle Adams, who was a flat Earth Mormon, the only murpher that we've ever seen. But I mean, he's not a bad guy. He just has some terrible arguments. But he absolutely handed him his ass.
He was a great interlocutor. He was friendly and nice, and a little maybe dishonest in a couple places, especially about quotes and things. But he was really kind and wasn't an asshole. my previous interaction with him, he was kind of mean to me. And but whenever we had the debate on your channel, he was a perfect interlocutor. I can't. I don't have a bad thing to say about him. I think his ideas are bad, but him personally, he's an all right guy. At least was then.
And so are you thinking of doing more debate? You know, is debate something you still want to do? Are you?
I would love to. I'm always down to. Again, I'm always down to do that. I like having just discussions with people. Sometimes those need to be moderated, but if people prefer a debate format, I'm down. I mean, like I'm not a you know. I like people like Darth Dawkins and stuff though. If it's a debate about, you know, like these presuppositional philosophy and stuff, I may turn that down because I'm just not really interested in that conversation. But you know,
I don't think a lot of us love the presup. You know,
yeah.
I mean,
my experiences with creationists. That's what I was. That's what I was raised with. Like 80% of the people around me right now are creationists. There's a huge population of creationists in Kentucky. That's why Ken Ham put AIG in the boat here.
Right.
You know, so that's really my experience. And I know that those seem like kind of low-hanging fruit topics at times, but 40% of this country thinks that man walked the earth with dinosaurs. So, you know.
That's frightening. That is absolutely frightening.
And in Kentucky, it's almost 50%.
Wow.
Pew stats, Pew Research. Just
Has that come down in the past years? Do you know, is that trending downwards at all, or has this sort of been around for a while?
In places, there's some places where it's kind of unchanging. It's not going up in most places. I'm sure there's examples where it is, but it's trending down though, just about everywhere.
Yeah,
it used to be a lot greater.
Surrounding 10 miles of, you know, Westboro Baptist Church, it's probably trending up kind of thing. But yeah. No, and I agree with Robin. Best debate was Shannon Pugh against Darth Dawkins. It was absolutely hilarious.
Yeah.
I think I've been through everything I really want to get to, but one thing I would like to ask you, and I kind of left this to the end, was where do you want your channel to go? What's your vision? What's your passion for your channel? Like, what do you really want us to see your channel sort of be going into the future?
Well, that's always an evolving idea, mostly because I never really expected anybody to pay me any attention, honestly. But I got a good response, and the community that's built around it and things is just amazing. And so I'm always wanting to add people to that community and just continue having these conversations. I would love to grow a channel that, of course, is successful, but I want it to be successful because I want to reach more people, and I want people to hear another voice correcting these bad ideas. I think that every voice out there doing it is important. I don't think there's like sure there's people that, you know, make claims and stuff within it that aren't doing great, and there's people like there's atheists like Thomas Sheedy and things like that I think are not doing great things. But I want to hear more people looking out for their fellow man and trying to reduce harm. I have a very humanistic view on it. Humanist.
Well, you've had some big names on there. You've had Matt Delahunty on. You've had Aaron Ra on. You've had Gerald Warren on. So you've had some really big people sort of, you know, really see the merits in what you're doing there. I mean, you've even had Mark Reid on. I mean, that guy, that guy, twice. I'm joking, but you have had some sort of very some very huge names on, and really, you know, really support your channel, which is fantastic. Well, and I love it.
The community is responsible for some of that. Like Robin helped me score Matt Delahunty. And Aaron was I I just sent an email and asked him, and he accepted. I mean, it was just, he said okay. I mean, we had to do a little back and forth about the date or whatever, but Aaron is, for me, you know, everybody has their favorites, you know, favorite creators and stuff in this niche area of YouTube, and mine's Aaron Raw, because mine and his experiences are very similar, and his book,
he grew up
really,
in Texas, right? He was Texas.
Yeah, and it was Mormons, but it was still creationists, and
right,
he was raised,
right.
and you know, a lot of the same things, and a deeply religious area surrounded by people like that and things. So, and I think a lot of people resonate with that, and that's one of the reasons Aaron's so successful. I mean, his charisma sure doesn't hurt, but and his knowledge, of course, but you know, his book really meant a lot to me, and I wanted to have him on and give people his book, and I did. I want to share those things that are important to me and I care about with the community that has supported me and been so great to me in the past. And you know, again, I felt isolated here. So finding this community of like-minded people that care about each other and care about reducing harm, I want to do everything I can to support each other. You know, like I want to support them, and I'm so grateful that they support me the way they do.
Well,
I just want to continue that.
I think that's wonderful, Joe, and I think I really like your channel. I like that sort of vision for it, and I think that your story is it's really encouraging, and really, like, I think that you don't give enough credit for struggling through such a hard place to get to where you are, and I just want to really congratulate you on that, because it's an amazing story.
Yeah, you know, Mark, I watched you before I started my own channel, and to be sitting here and have you say something like that to me means a lot. You're making me tear up now.
Oh,
I made it through all the other stuff without it, and now you got me with that one. I appreciate that.
Well, Joe's having a hard time at the moment. I would like to sort of shout out, he's got a GoFundMe going, so I'm going to drop that. I do have a link to it. So if we can help Joe, just, there's been some medical issues and you're just sort of struggling a lot, and that's okay. We all struggle. We all need to help one another, because we're all just human and trying to do the best we can with what we've got. And you know, if I encountered medical issues, if I want someone to help me when I'm struggling with medical issues, I've got to help others. That's basically where it's at. So I'm going to drop Joe's GoFundMe, and I'll update the description with that. So if you can, even like, you know, the tiniest amount would really help out. We all struggle. We all go through it. If you're in, like I am, the privileged place of having something extra to give, it would really be appreciated. But thank you so much, everybody. But Joe, it's been fantastic having you on, and thank you so much for sharing such a, you know, a deep and such a meaningful story. You know, I think why I was so surprised I didn't have you on is because you are such a genuine guy. You know, you are who you are, and sort of in these days of YouTube, we only get, you know, cardboard cutouts of people sometimes. And I'm glad you're you. I really am. I think that you're a fantastic guy, and I'm so happy to call you my friend.
I say the same about you. I did today, actually.
No,
I said Mark Reid,
thank you.
One of the kindest, caring people that I've encountered, and just very genuine about it, and cares about doing good things. I was saying almost that exact thing. And as far as being genuine, if nobody has to listen to anything I say. You don't have to listen to me.
Yeah.
But if I'm going to tell you that I'm an activist and I'm passionate about this thing, for me anyway, I have no other avenue than to just lay it all out there, right? And some of it's not easy to talk about and all that, but if I have to sit and get upset even night after night doing this to help somebody else choose a different path than I did in some of those instances, it is well worth it. And I would do it every day. So that as far as being genuine, I think it's important, and I think you're very genuine. That's why we resonate so well together.
Yeah.
So
I mean, I try. I think that there is in our current society, there's a sort of, a propensity to say, well, I've got to show this mask of doing well and doing fantastic, and everyone's got to see. But I fall into that a little bit. I think everybody does. They don't want to show you the bad side, but I try to be genuine with people and connect with them on a personal level. It is hard. It's really hard, and I get that.
Robin's been asking for me to say post hoc rationalization the whole time we've been talking. What's Joe's favorite term? Because post hoc rationalization is one of the things I point to in many arguments when I'm talking to theists, and it's one of my go-to things. And so Robin's, what's Joe's favorite term? It's post hoc rationalization.
Post hoc rationalization. Yeah. So if anyone's wondering what that means, it just means like you've basically, after the fact, you've made up a reason for why it is correct, kind of thing, or why it fits what you already believe. It's basically just confirmation bias, essentially, is post hoc.
Starting with the conclusion and trying to make the evidence fit your preferred narrative.
Basically, yeah. So it's like, well, why is the genetic code all similar? Same design. That is 100% a post hoc rationalization. Absolutely.
Yeah.
But we do have some questions, Joe, if you can indulge me. I don't want to keep you too long because I know it's going to get pretty late there if we go forever. The first question from How to Rule an Asteroid: if you had to attend a church, what denomination would it be and why?
I mean, I guess it's a funny answer because I guess it would be Catholics, because I don't know a whole lot about the Catholic rituals, and I don't know a whole lot about Catholicism. I mean, historically I do, but how it's practiced contemporarily, I don't know a whole lot about it. So it would be Catholic because I'd like to learn about it more.
Well, Catholics, they've got some problems. They don't believe in contraception. They believe in transubstantiation, i.e. the body of Christ and the blood of Christ kind of thing. But, I guess they're one of the less egregious ones if you compare it to, Southern Baptism and stuff, I guess. But,
it's very different from Southern Baptist.
Yeah. Next question from Stacy C. Do you think there's any shot in this lifetime for Kentucky to shift purple or even blue?
I mean, I think there's always a chance, and as long as people get out and vote and continue to not let some of these violent and harmful ideologies persist, then there's always a chance.
So
but
I think there's a chance.
I think that maybe that's the wrong question, because I don't know that the red and blue things, or black and white as we see it, version of things is going to survive into the future necessarily. I think that's going to have to change a little bit. So, but I think people can always do better. As bad as we are about picking supernatural ideas and stuff, there are moments of people caring and overcoming and great stories like that. So there's always a chance.
Yeah, I mean, there's always a chance of everything, really. There's always a shot of people dumping both parties and going for a third one or something. Who knows? It's very hard to say, isn't it?
Yeah.
But I don't know. Next one from Jess at How to Rule an Asteroid. What is your favorite Eocene animal? Eocene, sorry, animal. Eocene. I have to look up which era that is.
I don't know, Jeff. I would have to look that up. I think I think we had this conversation before, and I blundered on it then as well.
Oh God,
the Eocene isn't one that I'm really familiar with.
Eocene is the second of the epochs of the Tertiary period. Okay. I don't even know what animals. Is that sort of the megafauna period? Because I would definitely say Megatherium is mine. Sorry to answer your question, Joe. I'm just going to answer your question for you, mate.
Yeah, no, feel free, because I don't know the answer.
I think it's megafauna. Let's see which epoch was Megatherium in? Early Pleistocene. Yeah, it's not even in that period. Okay, we both failed the question. Okay. Pachycetus. Okay, that's
it would
your
be
favorite.
Pachycetus.
Pachycetus. Okay.
Yeah.
Beautiful. There you go. You've got one. So it takes Jess to answer her own question, which is just awesome. Ember, the lovely Ember. What do you wish people would ask you more often? I think this is in relation to asking what religion you are or what church do you go to, kind of thing. Like, what do you wish they would ask more often?
I mean, I wish they would ask questions about how instead of asking things about, my belief and stuff like that, ask about the world at large, how things actually, ask questions that have answers. I mean, I prefer, but I guess if you're asking about me personally, just, hey, how you doing? Just ask me how I'm doing. That's someone caring enough to ask that means a lot.
Well, I wish people would ask that question, with a genuine interest in how, because usually how you're doing, and then you go, well, I had, a bit of a horrible night last night and stuff, and they go, well, why are you saying that? It's like, well, you asked me how I'm doing. People
hey,
don't
how are you
expect that.
doing? It's, hey, how are you doing? Now let me tell you my thing.
Right. Or how are you doing as long as you're fine?
Yeah.
Like, just be fine. Like, just say fine, even if you're not, kind of thing. So I wish people would ask, is there anything you need? Is there anything that I can do to help you? I don't know. Maybe I'm just too optimistic. Al Trucker asks, who's your favorite bluegrass musician?
Oh boy. What is what is the name of that band? Three Dog. I can't remember their name. I like bluegrass music in general. I mean, I don't like sit and listen to it, but I like the Kentucky spin on gospel music, because that's very much what it is. So yeah, I like it, and I like to hear modern songs converted into bluegrass tunes. I think that's cool, like taking popular songs and making a bluegrass mix of it. The banjo, any band with a banjo is my favorite.
Anything with a banjo. Okay. I don't even know any bluegrass musicians, so I can't actually answer that in the slightest. That's fine. Jess, how to rule an asteroid. We've got a skill testing question, apparently. What is the airspeed velocity of an unladen swallow?
What?
What is the airspeed velocity of an unladen swallow?
I have no idea what that means.
Okay. I think you failed the skill testing.
Yeah.
That is a quote from Monty Python and the Holy Grail, where they're talking about the airspeed velocity of an unladen swallow.
Oh, sorry, I'm not. I love.
No, that's okay.
I love Monty Python, but I'm not familiar enough with it to remember.
Have you seen that movie? Because that one is absolutely ridiculous.
It's hilarious. Yeah.
Yeah. So and the last question, I think, is what's your favorite flower? And that's from Annoying All-Purpose Orifice Newsletters, whose favorite flower is tiger lily. What is your favorite flower?
Various varieties of orchids. I think orchids are both beautiful and amazing.
Yeah, I agree with you, actually. That's
what or my second favorite would have to be the flower that grows on the cannabis plant.
Oh, okay. The bud of the cannabis plant. Yeah. All right. Well, I mean, that wraps up. Thank you so much for coming on, Joe. I hope you've had a good time. I found it really interesting and awesome. I've had a fantastic time. So I want to thank you so much for coming on and gracing us with your presence. It's been amazing and sharing so much. I really appreciate it. You've been so open and honest and, shared all of the good things and the bad things about what's happened. And again, I really admire the sort of, things that you're doing over there. It's fantastic.
Well, that means a lot to me, and thank you for having me on, and a big shout out and thank you to the community that makes it all possible.
No problem. And if you aren't subscribed, and most of you are probably already subscribed to the Amazing Kentucky Atheist, but if you're not, go over there and drop a subscription. Joe's always doing sort of community things and member only streams and all kinds of stuff over there. Really good channel that I 100% endorse. So go and drop a subscription for Joe, and I guarantee you won't be disappointed. But thank you so much for joining us, everybody. This has been Joe, the Kentucky Atheist. Be kind to yourself, be kind to each other, and I will see you in the next one. See you, everyone.